the world. Indeed, they needed to be for their own safety. And if that proved possible, Lippmann concluded, the things that seem difficult will seem easy, and the willingness to be equal to their mission will restore their confidence and make whole their will. This is a book about how Americans like Walter Lippmann sought to reconcile their nation's power in the world with the problem of their democracy at home. The question of how to conduct foreign policy in a democracy is not new now, and it was not new in 1939. Debates about which Americans should be entrusted with diplomacy and to whom they should be accountable and how had run through the earliest years of the Republic, as the United States tried to find its place in a world of warring empires. The Constitution handed the conduct of foreign affairs to the executive branch to ensure that the power of making treaties should be committed to able and honest men, as John Jay wrote in 1788, men who could be kept insulated from the worst impulses of electoral politics. The fear of permitting popular views to interfere with diplomacy was a lasting one. Alexis de Tocqueville thought that foreign affairs would be the downfall of the nation he so admired. Diplomacy, the French correspondent wrote in the 1830s, requires virtually none of the distinctive virtues of democracy, but does demand the development of nearly all that it lacks. While some American statesmen agreed, others found ways to use democratic politics for their nation's cause. Secretary of State William Seward, for instance, began a tradition of transparency by starting the Foreign Relations of the United States series in 1861, releasing diplomatic documents to bolster confidence in Abraham Lincoln's prosecution of the Civil War in the belief that if the government continually depends upon the support of Congress and the people, as Seward said, such support could be expected only in the condition of keeping them thoroughly and truthfully informed. If issues like these were as old as the United States itself, however, the dilemma took on a deeper, darker intensity as the world grew more connected, as the nation flourished economically, and as Americans felt both more influential and more insecure in international affairs. From the 1910s to the 1970s, the problem of a democratic foreign policy became an existential one, the solution to which felt as if it might assure world peace or cause a war. In that period, this book argues, to think about foreign policy in the United States was always to think about democracy. For behind debates over what the national interest might be lay assumptions about who should get to decide. Since the 1970s, it has been conventional wisdom that U.S. foreign policymaking is, and long has been, the province of an elite or establishment, the blob, as Obama administration official Ben Rhodes scorned in 2016. These terms, though different in their critical force, invoke a network of professionals who move between the federal government, think tanks, and academia, and are united in their belief in the righteousness of U.S. world leadership. While arguments have periodically flared up about how powerful this elite really is, how far its mistakes should discredit it, and how closed it is to outsiders and outside ideas, there is little doubt about whether it exists. Where disagreement does persist, and, if anything, has heightened, is on the question of how responsive that elite is or should be to the popular will. Does the foreign policy to which this elite subscribes, whatever its internal differences, match what Americans really want? Does the elite follow or ignore mass preferences? Does it suffer from a lack of accountability, or even a crisis of legitimacy? Does it care? The histories of the terms we currently use to describe those who run U.S. foreign policy give the answers away. The idea of a secretive, even manipulative foreign policy elite or establishment pulling the strings was something of a joke until the worst years of the Vietnam War. When the New Yorker writer Richard H. Rovere brought the notion of an establishment in America, with the Council on Foreign Relations as a sort of presidium, into the mainstream in 1961, he was spoofing the conspiratorial thinking of the extreme right and the academic left. But by the end of the decade, the idea had become common sense, as campus protesters, leftist writers, and even some past policymakers argued that the Vietnam disaster was not just an error, but symptomatic of a deeper refusal to submit foreign policy to democratic control. The phrase foreign policy establishment first entered the New York Times in 1970, when one of the war's architects, former National Security Advisor McGeorge Bundy, described the claims that he had been part of such an establishment as nonsense. Foreign policy elite followed in 1971, in an expose of the Council's fraught private debates about its place.